Hello, and welcome back to the Sheriff's Corner with TK Waters. I'm Lara Mattina, the Chief Strategic Advisor for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. During Sheriff Corner episodes, we have conversations with our Sheriff, TK Waters, and other special guests concerning public safety in Jacksonville and what's going on in your law enforcement agency. We aim to provide the public that we serve with as much information as possible so that we can be transparent about crime and law enforcement in our community. Today on Sheriff's Corner, we are talking with Sheriff Waters about a key priority of his administration, transparency. Transparency means the quality of being open and easy to perceive. Practically, for our purposes in law enforcement, it means providing as much information to the public that we can without violating the law or hampering the integrity of investigations. Sheriff Waters, thank you for joining us today for this conversation.
Glad to be here. Really glad to be here.
So I want to start off by asking why transparency has been such a key priority for your administration.
I think it's pretty obvious. I think the more we can talk to our public, the more we can tell them what's going on within the agency, the more trust we gain. For far too long, it's been believed that there's these hidden mysteries and secrets that are behind closed doors. Well, we want people to see that that's really not the case. We tell what we can, and what we can't, we try to explain why we can't tell it.
So really, if I'm understanding, you're trying to sort of take the veil or the mystique that surrounds, law enforcement procedures and policies away so that the public can see in as much as possible.
Yeah, so a lot of times people believe that it's an us versus the community mentality because we keep everything hidden, keep everything out of the eye of the community. Well, that's not necessarily the case. The case is that we share what we can share. And that's as much as possible. I think, and I'm hoping our citizenry can see that we have a sincere desire to keep them informed about what's going on in our community. I think that's very important for us now, and it will be for us moving forward.
In terms of being the highest law enforcement official in the city, why is public trust so important in law enforcement?
Well, Sir Robert Peel wrote the 9 Principles of Law Enforcement many years ago in 1829. And one of those was, in order for us to have an effective police department, the public has to approve of the job we're doing. Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily about ratings. That's not the goal. It's about for people seeing what it is we do, why we do it, and even some of the things that are more difficult. I think the real test is when the difficult subject comes up, do we talk about it and do we tell people about it? And yes, we do. When we can, as soon as we can, we get that information out as quickly as possible.
So in terms of, for our purposes, I said this earlier, but we say as much as we can without obviously violating law, and there are some restrictions on things we can provide, but also so that we don't hamper the integrity of our investigations, correct?
Correct. Example, a lot of times in homicide cases, there's information in homicide cases that we don't share. We don't share that information not because we want to remain secretive, but there's 2 groups of people that should know that information. That's the person that's responsible and the police. If it goes beyond that, we end up having a polluted case where information is getting out and it'd be very difficult to verify whether or not we're getting true stuff or not. If we keep that close to us during the investigative process, I think we're serving our victims' families, because that's what we are. We're the voice for the victim and the victim's family. And I think we're serving them the best by keeping that close to the vest until we can bring that case to a conclusion.
And you said until we can bring the case to the conclusion. Do you see a time where, after an investigation is completed, that it is appropriate to release additional information to the public?
Yeah, 100%. Once we get a suspect in custody, once we build that case, and that case begins its trial process, sometimes we have to wait, and we'll wait until that's over. But after that, we want to get that out as best we can. That's why we have a transparency side. There's a lot of stuff on there also.
Well, we're going to get to the transparency side in just a little bit.
Perfect.
But so one thing I do want to talk about that is pretty remarkable is that one of the first things you did when you came into office in December of 2022 is you formalized a transparency policy for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. And for the first time, JSO had transparency requirements in the operational orders, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now that's Order 505, and we're going to show our viewers a portion of it, and it's called the Agency Transparency Policy. And it functions to ensure that JSO will continuously provide information of concern to the public. And it details sort of the standard materials that JSO shall proactively release, specifically pertaining to open data, the transparency website that we're going to talk more about, body-worn camera of officers who are involved in critical incidents, criminal investigations of JSO members, in-custody deaths, response to resistance data, and certain public relation materials. I'm curious why you chose to add transparency into the operational orders rather than sort of keep it as an aspirational goal for the administration.
So a part of what I said when I was entering into office, and what I said all along the campaign trail, was we were going to be transparent. Transparency is key. I really believe in that. I believe in accountability. To hold myself and our agency accountable, if we put that in writing, we put that in an order that's actually available to the public. There's no better way to hold yourself accountable, to create a policy that says what we're going to do and the time frame we're going to do it, and share that with our community. That way they can call me on it. If something doesn't happen within a certain amount of time that we've held ourselves to, then they can call me on it. And I'll explain it as best I can. If there's something that prohibits us from putting something out sooner, then we'll explain the reason why. We recently had an arrest of a young police officer, unfortunately, 4-year veteran of the sheriff's office. And we wanted to tell that information as quickly as possible. But we had to wait about a week, or a little over a week, because our federal partners were working a case that involved some information. Once they finished their end of the case, then we came out yesterday and we told the public about the arrest.
So really, by adding it as an operational order, you've translated it from being sort of like this amorphous operational goal into a mandate for the sheriff's office.
That's correct.
Okay. So you talked a little bit about earlier the transparency website. Mm-hmm. Just so our viewers understand, what actually is the transparency website?
Well, the transparency site has our numbers on it, whether it be homicide numbers, murder numbers, and case information. Even our officer-involved incidents that happen, once they're complete, we put all that information out there for the public to be able to go to not join JSO, excuse me. Oh, we can go to join JSO too if you want to join. That's another thing. But JAXSHERIFF.org, and you look on that, and you can go to our transparency site, and you can see the things that have taken place and the information that's on there for you to be able to look at.
So it has statistical data?
That's correct.
And it has some body-worn camera footage as well of incidents. Correct. And my understanding is one thing you have done is sort of expanded it. So if there's a case of public interest that may not have fit one of the categories as well, you'll funnel that information through the transparency website.
100%, yes.
So Sheriff, I'd like to talk about how the agency policy on transparency specifically speaks to an issue that's always of public concern. Those are officer-involved shootings or officer-involved critical incidences. You put in the agency transparency policy that JSO will proactively release appropriately redacted body-worn camera footage of an officer-involved shooting within 21 days of the incident, provided that the release does not impact or impair the active and criminal investigation going on.
That's correct.
So I want to unpack that a little bit. What entity or what agency actually advises the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office whether or not that body-worn camera footage release will impact the criminal investigation or
so
not?
That would be the state attorney's office. The big thing about, and we have a partnership, but they operate independently of us. The evidence actually is ours, but in order to make sure that the process stays the way that it's supposed to stay, very, very clean, very without any issues being involved, we work closely with them as far as the release is concerned. And we wait to hear from them to make sure they're good with the release of it, because they could very potentially prosecute a case, and we don't want to put something out there that shouldn't be out there if it's going to be used for evidence in that case.
Sure, and I can say as a former prosecutor, you obviously don't want evidence that might be used in a jury trial, for example, disseminated to the public, because that could potentially taint your jury pool or give people information that they should only hear within the four corners of a jury room, right?
That's correct. And our state attorney, they make all prosecution decisions. we may arrest or we may not arrest, or in a case involving an officer-involved shooting, it's an active, open homicide investigation. And they're looking at that from that lens, and they do that investigation. We do ours, evidence collection. Once we get all that done, it's packaged, it's given to them, and then we hear back from them when it's a good time, when we can put that. And they understand that I want to do this within a 21-day period, 3 weeks.
Right. And that speaks to the partnership you have
That's
with them.
100%. And I don't want to upset Ms. Nelson. She's a good friend, but also she's a prosecutor and she's the state attorney. So we want to make sure we try to stick as closely as we can and get that information and get the proper response back so we can put that out.
So in terms of the transparency policy, then you obviously want to push out this body-worn camera as quickly as possible, but you need really the okay from the state attorney's office that doing so will not harm the investigation that they're independently conducting.
Correct.
Okay. Now, since you took office, each release of body-worn camera pertaining to an officer-involved shooting has been part of what we've called critical incident community briefings. And for the viewers that don't know, these are available online and they can look at them.
Yes.
But they really are sort of more holistic briefings that give context to the body-worn camera, correct?
Yes.
Why did you make the decision to do these full community briefings rather than to just push out the raw body-worn camera footage?
Well, it's very difficult to interpret a video clip. You just put it out there and people just look at it and there's no context. There's no information that leads up to why we were there, what we were doing at the time that ultimately resulted in us having to use deadly force, if that's the case. So I think it's very important to tell the story. I think it's very important for people to see who it is we may be after, who it is we may have been surveilling, what happened on that traffic stop prior to the OIS, if that's what it is. In order to really get all the information, you have to show as much as you can. You have to give as much background as you can for people to be able to see. And ultimately, it's important. There's people out there that it's not going to matter. I understand that. But there's a huge part of our community that really want to see and add context to what they're seeing. And that's very, very important. Real information, real time, with real evidence about what happened and why it happened.
So these briefings really are about pushing out more information to the public. They're not about defending the officers, correct?
That's correct. More information. The more information you give, now the story kind of tells itself. Instead of, you leave it open, you just show a clip of a video and then people are left saying, well, man, why did that happen? What were they doing there? What was the purpose of all of that? And by doing it the way we've been doing it, I thought it should look more professional because our public deserves an agency that's a professional agency that gives them information in context, in order, so to help them understand what's taking place the best we can. Because not everyone's going to be a police officer. Not everyone's a law enforcement officer. So it's very difficult to put you in the shoes of a police officer on the street at midnight on a street corner that's doing a traffic stop. It's hard to do that. So we want to give them as much information as we can to help them understand. And
I'm curious if you've aware of feedback from the community surrounding these briefings. What has the response been?
I've had some really good response. I appreciate that you're doing this, that you're getting out in a timely manner. If we could do it faster, we would, but I think 21 days is a good time frame. It's not too long. It's not really short because there's that process. And but I hear a lot of that. Thank you for putting it out. Thank you for giving us the information. Thank you for helping us to understand. Like even if it's ugly, if it's rough, I hear stuff like, it may look rough, but thank you to the sheriff's office for putting it out so that we can see for ourselves.
And I think you've said this many times in many different contexts, but violence of any kind is always awful to see, correct?
Yeah, it's awful to see. I mean, there's nothing really positive about seeing whether it's a fight or whether it's something that ends up in an officer-involved shooting. It's not pretty to look at. It's difficult.
So even lawful violence is ugly violence.
That's correct.
Okay, so I want to also talk about something that you alluded to earlier, which is baked into the transparency policy. You have pledged to proactively release information regarding the arrest of any JSO employee by the agency. Why have you chosen to stand up and to tell these stories when, frankly, it speaks negatively about the agency on some level because we've had an employee who's been arrested?
Accountability is key. So when you hear me talk about accountability, that's not just a thing because I'm a policeman. I believe in it. I think that's something that we should do. And when it comes to a police officer getting arrested, I've said over and over again that it doesn't matter who you are. If you violate the law, then we're going to hold you accountable. Previously, if there was a DUI arrested by another agency, we didn't talk about it. But I think the public should know. I know the risk. I know there'll be folks out there who would say, they don't have control of their agency, or these guys are out here doing these things and police officers dirty. No, I realize that. I realize it, but that's like less than 1%. It really is. Most of the time, most of the young men and women that work here, whether it be our civilians, corrections, police, the best of the best. But eventually, when you have this many employees, there are going to be those that step out of line. What kind of sheriff would I be if I didn't do what I was charged to do and then tell the public about it? Because I tell the public about everything else, so I might as well tell the public about that.
No, I think that's a really important point to make, that transparency is not about cheerleading for the agency. It's about opening the veil on the agency.
That's correct.
And in an agency that has hundreds, if not thousands of employees, there are going to be negative light.
Yeah, over 3,000.
We have to shine it on the negative just as much as we do the positive.
Yes, I think that's how you gain legitimacy. I think that's how you gain trust from the public. When you show them, listen, we're not all perfect, even us. And when we have a situation where someone does something they should not do, you kill everything. If you don't address it, you don't tell the public about it.
Yeah.
All the strides you make, it goes away. So as soon as we have a situation that rises like that, it's been 2 this year so far, we're going to get down and we're going to tell the public about it, because I think we should. It's the right thing to do.
It is, and I think you're right. When you own what is negative, that's what builds the trust with the community.
That's correct.
Okay, so speaking of standing up, I know you've been very forward-facing in your time in office, and you've regularly done a lot of public media stand-ups. You interview with the media quite a bit. You're proactively releasing information to the public, both through the transparency page, but also through relationships with the media. Why have you chosen to be so forward-facing?
So as a leader of an agency this size, and with the number of people that work here and that depend on you, and we depend on them to do what they do, I think I should stand up. I think people should see their elected sheriff, the person that they said they want to sit in this seat in this office. I think they should see me. Do I like television and stuff? I mean, it's fine. I'd rather watch it than be on it, but it's part of it. So I knew that when I decided I was going to do this, I knew that that was something that people wanted to see, because I listen. I hear when I was on the campaign trail, I hear people say, we like to see the sheriff. We like for him to be out there. I believe in every time there's an OIS, I believe I should go. I believe I should be present. I believe when there's a major incident in our city, when it comes to public safety, I think I should be there. Because that way people know that we're paying attention, and I'm going to do that as long as I can, unless something happens that I can't. But I plan on doing that as long as I can, as often as I can, when the situation avails itself, when it comes up.
So it seems, if I'm understanding you correctly, you feel that you were elected by the people.
Yes.
And the people need to see you because you really are sort of the incarnation of the agency in their mind.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
No doubt about it.
And I know one piece of that is you've really gotten out in the public and conducted what we call sheriff's walks.
Yes.
So just for our viewers who don't know, what is a sheriff's walk?
It's really, they call it crime and prevention walks, crime safety prevention walks. But I like to say it's my opportunity to get out and meet real people. They don't just see me on a YouTube clip standing behind a podium. I get to see people face to face. I actually like people. I really do. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy interacting with people. So I get a chance to go out, talk to people, meet them face to face, and hear directly from them what it is they're dealing with, what it is they're seeing in their community. Our last one, which is up in District 4, up off of Old Middleburg Road and No Road, we had a chance to go out there and we heard complaints or issues with trash, and we saw it, with maybe some prostitution, and we didn't see any of that taking place because it was in the middle of the day. But we hear a variety of different things. So what I like about it is the district commander is there with me, while the chief of patrol is there with me, and a bunch of other people, and they hear these things also. And they're expected by me and the chief of patrol and the staff here to address those issues and go back to the community with responses to those issues. And I really like the last one. The trash issues were taken care of. They're working on speeding issues, and they're working on the prostitution problems. So that's what people should expect to see from us, and that's why I like those walks.
So in these walks, and I understand you've completed 11 of them, you don't go alone, you go with members of your command staff, correct?
Yes, correct.
So you're all having conversations, and you target these neighborhoods where you get out and literally you knock on people's doors and talk to them out there in public, right?
Yes, 100%. It's fun. I like them. And I was talking to some of the staff members last time, and I said, we may end up doing 2 of these a day when we go out. Yeah. They said, oh, Sheriff, you walk too fast. But, you know.
You do walk really fast.
Yeah, I do. I enjoy it. It's, like I said, it's a lot of fun, and it gives me a chance to get out and just talk to people.
Yeah, I think it's a really direct way that the agency can be responsive to community needs. Yeah. I mean, nothing's more responsive than knocking on the door of a neighbor and saying, right, hey, we've got a trash problem, and have the district commander come in and address that immediately.
100%. And you know, it's a little bit selfish, but I get to meet people, and they really get to see who I am as a person. You know, not behind the camera or sitting in an office upstairs. You know, where people sometimes have formed an opinion or a thought about an individual. Being able to go to a door and talk to a person for 2 or 3 minutes, they get a chance to see if you genuinely care, because people read people, right? You look at a person, you can tell whether the person really believes what they're saying or if they're just putting on an act. So I want people to see, I wanted to do this, and I enjoy doing this. And I'm glad, I think it started with Sheriff Glover. Sheriff Glover started it. Sheriff Rutherford continued, Sheriff Williams continued, and we're going to continue to do it because I think it's just a really good thing for us to do, and I enjoy it a lot.
Well, another way that I think JSO is trying to connect with people is through new use of social media, that we're trying to share information that way. Whew. And we're trying to provide, public service announcements to the public. And we do that because we know people are getting more and more of their information from social media. Yep. And I know we have lots of opinions on social media, so we won't go into all of that. But I'm curious if the push to do this has been a way that your administration is trying to connect with younger generations of our Jacksonville citizens.
Yeah, so let's face it, I'm getting older, and I struggle working some of that social media stuff. So what we've done is we've hired a bunch of young, smart people that are civilians to help us in this process. Like right now, I think this is wonderful. I think, and I want to be able to build an audience, because you can come here and get real information, but it's the people that are behind the scenes that you can't see right now that are helping us do this. The lights, the camera equipment. I go out and buy a movie camera, a VCR, big old time camera, and just film it. Well, that's not like that anymore. And we have the people in place to help us do that. We have social media people. We have all that stuff in place. And by doing that, our civilian employees are extremely valuable. I think because before we used to try to fit a policeman in some of these roles, and we just don't do it. That's not our skill set. But now we have people here with the skill set to work those things. If I don't ever have to look at social media, I wouldn't. I think social media is a good tool, but I think sometimes it's used for a lot of the wrong reasons. And but I enjoy it. I'm changing. I'm doing better, and I'm looking forward to what we can do moving forward.
So it sounds like JSO has really been making an effort not only to sort of take the veil off the mystique of policing and open up the doors, but do it in a way that appeals to lots of different generations and age groups.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there are young people now, or I say young people, that could be 18 to 35. I mean, young people now it's not a whole bunch of television anymore. It's
Right.
social media, you know, Facebook. What's the other ones? Can somebody help me? Twitter or
Which
X.
is X now.
X, yeah, X, which I have none of that. Instagram,
Yeah.
Snapchat, all that stuff. There are people that know how to do that stuff and know how to maximize it. So
And
that's what we have here.
It does provide us an opportunity to connect in
It
a
does.
different way.
It really does. And I'm learning throughout the process, and I like it.
One of the things that I found really interesting that I think a lot of the public may not know, and you kind of indicated, there's an entire public information unit at JSO.
Yep.
And it's exclusively tasked with the responsibility of sharing information.
Yeah.
And you indicated there's civilians that are part of it, right?
Yes, 100%.
But there are sworn officers too, right?
Yep.
So really their entire job every single day is sharing information publicly and sharing it with the media.
Yes.
And moving forward, I mean, you don't have to share any specifics, but I'm curious if we can expect to see JSO continue to innovate in the area of transparency. If your administration is looking for new mechanisms of circulating information to the public.
Always. So I always say this, and I mean this. I know policing. I understand policing. I understand what it takes to run an agency like this, and what it takes to have a department and do what we do. There are so many different things that you have to be willing to learn, and I'm always willing to learn. I'm always willing to listen to new ways to share information, new ways to get it out so that the people will see that there's no mysteries. This is just a bunch of people that work really hard every single day for a city that we all love and care about. And sometimes it gets cloudy, because for whatever reason, but really, in all honesty, we are always looking for different things, always looking for different ways to connect with our community and share information with them. And the best way to get it out, we want to get it out. And that's what we're trying to do. That's what this is about. This is about us talking about things that are important to the community and important to the sheriff's office, important to the vision that we have as a staff and administration, and what we want to see happen, and how we want to continue to build trust in what it is we do. I've spent 32 years of my life here, and I loved every second of it. And nothing is more frustrating or difficult than listening to people say that we're here for some other reason than keeping our community safe. So what I want people to really understand is why I'm encouraging officers to get out of their cars more. I'm encouraging officers. We did the change in our districts to allow officers to be closer and get out, because I want people to understand we're just regular people. We're just people here that are doing a job that's sometimes very difficult, and we are part of this community and we love it. We're here to defend it, take care of it, and take care of the people that live in it, and give them as much information as possible.
Well, thank you, Sheriff Waters. I look forward to seeing how we continue to push out new information to the public so that we can build the trust, which is really the foundation of policing in our community.
Thank you.
So that wraps up our conversation on transparency for this episode of Sheriff's Corner. Thank you for sharing your vision on this topic, Sheriff. If you have any questions, viewers, or topics you'd like to see in future episodes of Sheriff's Corner, please reach out to us on any of our JSO socials. Stay safe, Jackson.